Hi all, this is Kurt Cathy with 5 hacking tips. Today is going to be network enumeration 2, network discovery, and with using Recon-NG, another tool, and NMAP, the tool that I covered with network enumeration 1. But I'll cover it again today just for completeness. The last time there were a couple things I didn't cover and just wanted to touch on. Before diving into the tips that I have today, I just wanted to share some insights and some experience, particularly around enumeration that we use for offensive operations when we're attacking a network, or when we're just doing a survey to understand the vulnerabilities that are around the perimeter of a network. But to also share some insights on the defensive side. A lot of times, as a consultant, not a lot of times, but it's actually happened quite a bit more recently, because one thing is I'm more aware of it, and then the other thing is the work that I've been doing lately is around security architecture, and particularly security operations centers, and building those out, and looking at the postures, and even sometimes auditing the effectiveness of a security operations center. And when I walk in and I look at a SecOps team, or a manager, even sometimes maybe just like a security risk manager, and particularly in information risk management, because it's, I think, from a risk-based approach, when you look at the management of your security, one of the key things is to understand, as somebody that's in the network every day, and you're working in the network and you're behind the firewall, you have to be curious of not just what the firewall settings or what the IPS settings are, or IDS, or whatever they have going on, either at the perimeter or within the network, and what that whole firewall / IPS / IDS architecture is. You have to be curious about what the attacker's seeing from the outside. And it goes back to me now, it's starting to be an old adage, but people are still surprised when I say it. But quite frankly, getting into the network is the easy part. Moving around within the network is the hard part, and enumerating things within the network so that you can find a lateral opportunity or escalate within the box after you've already managed to get past the firewall and within a box. That's kind of the harder part. And in fact, in lab exams, most of the times that I've ever failed a lab exam isn't because I couldn't get into the boxes. It was because I couldn't get root. I couldn't escalate. So there's one thing that goes with that I want to emphasize, is that, first of all, enumeration is a big part of the job. You're enumerating all the time, and there are all kinds of tools out there related to enumeration. And you're enumerating even after you've hacked a box and you've managed to get a user. You go back into the enumeration phase. If you look at tools that are out there like WinPeas and LinPeas, those are all enumeration tools. They're telling you things about the system. A couple of weeks ago, I covered a tool when I was doing one of the Hack the Box intros, is Bloodhound. That's another enumeration tool. It's actually quite effective. I encourage you to watch that video and hit subscribe and like and comment if you don't mind. By the way, thanks for all the support. It's been good lately. A lot of viewers, almost 500 subscribers already within about 6 weeks, 8 weeks maybe. Keep up the support. But anyways, so yeah, Bloodhound. So when you get into the box, getting in is usually the easy part. If you know what you're doing, it is really the easier part of hacking. It's getting root after that. And so you have to understand that enumeration is a big part of it, and especially when you're in these lab environments and you're working on these boxes, either try Hack Me or in Hack the Box. the very first part, when you first run Nmap, that's the enumeration part. Or when you're scanning a whole network and seeing what boxes are up, that's the enumeration part. And then after you get in, you go through a whole another enumeration process to find escalation opportunity within the box. So that's one side of what I wanted to emphasize about how important enumeration is. And your enumeration skills can never be too good. I mean, you can even break enumeration down into the various security domains like wireless, even buzzing is a form of enumeration that reverse engineers use. In malware, when you're trying to do DLL hooking, you're basically, it's a trial and error kind of thing, but it is looking for what you can hook into most effectively with the techniques that you have at your hand. And the same with networks. We use Nmap and we use other tools. If you look at like a Nessus scan, something I quite frankly don't use anymore. I don't use scanners anywhere other than NetMap and a few other tools. But if you do a Nessus scan, that's an example of an enumeration. You're not necessarily going to hack anything with Nessus. You're going to find out a lot about the systems, most likely the patch status of systems, with a lot of false positive media time. It's a conjecture at this point. So that's what I wanted to say about enumeration and how important it is. But on the other side, if you're on the defensive side, it's really important to understand that you need to know what the attacker's seeing. Your firewall and your IPS with somebody that's seasoned is really not going to be that effective if you have weak systems that are exposed and you have ports and services that are exposed anyways. Your IDS is going to log something, maybe throw alert. Your IPS may stop something, but most of the time, if you're running on port 443 or something that has to be up, that's a service that the company's offering, you might get something out of your WAF or your firewall. But a lot of times when there's a hole or when there's something that isn't updated or when there is a vector, people get through. And just look at the success of the good bug bounty people that are out there. They're making money, not because firewalls and IPS and IDS are effective. They're making money because they're really good at enumeration. That is key. If you want to pass the lab exams particularly, and if you want to get into systems that you're working on as a pen tester, you need to know enumeration very well. Now let me get the second point. I've emphasized that. So the second point I wanted to make was if you're inside of an environment and you're in charge of the risk posture of that environment, or you're a security manager, or you're, particularly a security operations manager, you want to know what that attack surface is. So that's basically, as a hacker, when we're enumerating a system using Nmap or anything, we're basically doing an attack surface analysis on a network. Especially when you start looking at more than one box and you start looking at the attack landscape over a subnet or a couple of subnets or just a whole class C. You have to understand, as a person on the inside, what that attack surface looks like. And you just, I don't recommend that people wait on the next pen test, because that's a lot of times when those weaknesses come out. But that's only what the pen tester found. What would you notice as a person, knowing the people that are managing the systems? You're going to know the versions of the systems. You're going to know that maybe they're vulnerable. But if you're not doing an attack surface analysis and looking at that really close, you're not going to know how vulnerable they are. And you're not going to make a proper management decision about what your information security risk is at the company. So that's another side that I wanted to point out from the defense side. So now that I got that rant out of the way, particularly the second point, I wanted to show a couple things here. So the first thing is I have an attack surface analysis blog post and why it's so important. And I spent time and I wrote it out. This was September 22nd, last year. Take a look at that. I'll put all of these links in the in the notes. So this is the blog post that I wrote. So I'm not going to bore you and read all the way through that, but I basically go through what the attack surface analysis is, and I explained that. I explained that just a minute ago, but I explained why do it, and then also why is it important, and then the typical question that comes up. I've gone to either CIO or CIOs or network managers or people senior within the infrastructure teams to ask about, can I get this information, or what do I have to go through to get the information? And a lot of times, they say, well, we have a firewall and IDS and we have that set up and that's how we control all of that and that's how we analyze it. Well, that, just the log analysis from the inside doesn't show what an attacker's seeing on the outside. And waiting on, like I said earlier, waiting on the next pen test is not the answer. Because most organizations only pen test once, twice. Even if you're a bank, it's only like 4 times a year, maybe, depending on the system. Different systems may have different timelines, but so it's a good litmus test. Also, if you gotta be careful about this, but I've got to watch what I say too, but if you're going to take a job somewhere as a security manager, you kind of want to know what that attack surface analysis result would be before you actually step into the organization as a manager. Or you'll be very smart in the interview and you'll know which systems have which weaknesses, which could get you into trouble in certain countries. So I don't completely recommend that. The next item I wanted to touch on is basically it's around a tool. It's around a tool called Recon-NG. So last week I covered NMAP, and one of the things that I do if I start a pen test and somebody gives me a top level domain, and I want to find all of the subdomains, and then I want to find a lot of other information about everything and anything related to that domain. I usually turn first to this tool. It's called Recon-NG. Here's the website. It's on Hacker Target. They have a tutorial there. I'm not sure if that's where it's published or not, but here's the tutorial. And the first thing that is really appealing to me and a lot of people that do use this tool is the fact that it's a lot like Metasploit. So you basically start it up, and maybe a little bit, I don't even know if Metasploit has a marketplace where you can go and put in modules. If somebody knows that, please school me on it. I just use Metasploit the way it comes in Kali, and it works very well. And then I do know how to put in Ruby scripts. You can do that with Metasploit, but with this, it has a marketplace, and I'll show you. It goes through that in the tutorial for specifically what I'm talking about here. So if you want to do an attack surface analysis on a particular top-level domain, you basically go in here, you start up Recon-NG, and I'll walk you through it here also. I'll show you real time here. So you go into Recon-NG, you basically, let me start from the beginning. So I'll just say Recon-NG from the Kali command line. And right here, I can type help, and that's the first thing that they show in the thing. So as you can see, there's a prompt right there, and it's kind of like Metasploit, and the help, and you can also make shell commands from within this interface by preceding it with shell. There's also another, I think it's a shebang, and it'll run a shell command as well. And then you can basically load modules that you download. Like I was talking about here, there's a marketplace feature. So I could just say I've already installed this I've already installed this, but I could say marketplace install, and I think it's hacker target. And that provides the module. Actually, but anyways, so I'm in the hacker target module. So I load module, or I just say modules load, and then hacker target, and the prompt changes. So right there, I'm in the hacker target module. And then from there, I can put in something. I say show options. And it shows all of the options related to this particular module. And then I could say, options. There's one of these in the tutorial. And I set the source, actually, not the target, source. And then here I want to say my domain. Excuse me, I'm about to sneeze. This is the season. sysrisk.com. So, I mean, I own this. So in Japan, I'm legal on this one. So I'm gonna run this and see what comes out. Actually, no, I just set the source. So it says sysrisk.com, and then in here, like in Metasploit, you say show options or show info. Here you type in info, and it shows everything related to this particular module and what you've set up. It shows a source there. And then you can set up some other query, SQL-based queries. You set up a string representing a single input and some other stuff in there, or a path to a file containing a list of inputs. So if you wanted to do more of a brute force interrogation of what the instead of a DNS directory lookup, you would be doing a brute force against the subdomains. But so that's in there. And then if we look at I think this. I gotta get my mouse over here. So that shows what the module inputs are. And then right here, if we execute it, it basically goes through that, and it shows one host found. It only shows sysrisk.com found, and that's by design. Actually, there is a blog.sysrisk.com. There is a www.sysrisk.com, and not a whole lot came out of it. But if you run that on Tesla, here, let me go back to the second display here. So if you run that, let me expand that a little bit. So if you run that on Tesla, you'll get a bunch of different subdomains from Tesla. I'm not going to do that here because it's illegal in Japan. But there's another way to do this. So if you run this and then you want to display, you can actually say show hosts. So I'll do that down here and see what we get. There's a bunch in here, but it's showing some client data, so I'm showing that. Let's clear that. And then so that's Recon-NG. So I wanted to cover that, and let's go to the next item I wanted to cover. And there's the Black Hills Security Recon-NG cheat sheet. So let's get into cheat sheets. So these are really good, especially when you're starting out, because things don't come natural. A lot of what I do, though, is off of a Cherrybook notepad. It's like a tree. I recommend Cherrybook. It's like a tree-based notepad where you can take notes and you can split everything up into categories and then and break it down. And I may one day share that, but there's a lot of cleansing involved, and I'm hesitant to. Everybody has their favorite hacking notebook. That's my particular notebook. And speaking of notebooks in hacking, if you just want something really quick to start off with, to get to know the tools, let me introduce you to a couple of things. These are two really good books. So like for password cracking and stuff like this hash crack book is like really good. It's on Amazon. It only costs a couple bucks. I don't even think it costs like 10 or 11 bucks. But for all the John, for any of the air crack, anything that's in there that you need when it comes to using a password cracking thing, that's like a really good handbook to have available. And sometimes these things come in handy because you're searching the web and everything. And what I do a lot of times is I index them on where I know what to look up. Also, there's a really good intro on, not intro, but it tells you exactly the commands you need to use in a speedy manner for Hydra, which is one of my favorites. And then here's another book that just has everything. It's in alphabetical order. It's called the Operator Handbook. I think there's a couple of editions of this, and I think I bought the latest edition. Even if there isn't, or even if it's a little dated, a lot of the tools in here are really basic. They cover a lot of shell scripting and that kind of thing. It's a book that I recommend. But getting back to notes and cheat sheets, look up cheat sheets and get used to cheat sheets, because you can go through the tutorial and go through like the hacker target module and get everything you want. But Recon-NG has a lot of modules, and it's a very good tool for enumeration. So here's the Black Hills Security Recon-NG cheat sheet, and I recommend you download it. It's in PDF form, and enjoy. Let's see, am I almost at 5 today? I think we're going to have a couple of extras. But another thing I wanted to share was the NMAP site. The last time I talked about NMAP, NMAP is such a huge tool, and there's so much available on it. And even I learn a lot about NMAP even today, almost, once a week. I recall a flag or relearn a flag, or I learn something completely new. And this is the NMAP site. This comes up a lot. But another thing I wanted to point out was, I think there's the book. I was recommending the book. And I have a hard copy of the book, but there's actually the book online here. And you can just download the book, I believe. So that's the NMAP site. And then the last thing, and there's this script right here that, if you want to go through NMAP, this is basically a version scan, and it goes all, so it's going to go for everything, versions of everything. And a deeper, like it might even give you some extra. It's a longer, more noisier and more comprehensive scan. It's going to take longer, but it's going to maybe even like fingerprint the OS and some other additional information about the target. And then -T4, of course, that's aggressive scanning. And then the -ON is actually the output. The -O flag is output. And this N is for NMAP format. And here, this is the name. So I said results output _nmap.txt. So that'll just put out in NMAP format what you would see on the console. That'll put it out to a text file. -PN is a no ping scan. And then the -P is the ports 1 to 10,000. And then you put the target IP and all NMAP commands at the very end. I know I'm reiterating what I went through probably the last time, and it's probably in the links that I provided last time, but I thought this would be a quick refresher. And this is a good script too, to put everything in text, especially if you're working with a client, excuse me, or even in a lab. It's good to throw everything into text, to have it available, because you go back, okay, so that port, okay, so I can't get in on that port. Let's try the other port that's open and see what's available there. And that kind of thing. So you want to document what you do as much as possible. The last item is a little goodie that actually I created. It was actually bubblegum and duct tape. I take very little credit for it, other than I put it together. I did write maybe a couple hundred lines of code, probably more than that. But there was a bit of customization in the code that's up on GitHub. There's a lot of code that's commented out, and that's for various reasons. Take a look at it. Like I say, if you can't read code, Stack Overflow is your friend. Learn how to read it. Like, don't just download code and start using it and following the instructions. Get to know the code. For me, Go goes in and out of my life because to me, it's like a C variant. It compiles. If you can read C, you probably read Go just fine for the most part, maybe with a few Google searches here and there. And this is the website that I'm talking about. It's on GitHub. It's on my page on GitHub. It's GoNADS. I didn't name it. Actually, I didn't know. I really didn't name it. Go is for the language Go. NADS is Network Attack something service. Attack and defense service or something like that. Because you can actually change the code. If you take a good look at it, you can actually work this in the code. If you go down the main file and take out the required inputs, you can actually just have it so that it reads off of a text file and it scans automatically. And that was originally what we did, where people could go into a system, they would put in a top level domain for a client. Internal, like within a pen testing service, they'd put in a top level domain for a client, go have a cup of coffee, they'd come back the next day. Actually, the scan takes a long time because it's very comprehensive. It does a couple of different scans and come back the next day with everything in a properly formatted web viewable XML format. So here it is. I recommend this. Well, this doesn't use Recon-NG to interrogate for the subdomains. It just goes and sees what's available at, I think I used the Google domain server, 888.8888. And it looks up all the subdomains from there. I might use a couple of different ones, but I'm pretty sure this particular version, yeah, right there, uses 8888. And it looks it up from there. And it's a pretty nifty piece of code. A lot of it's commented out. You know, there's a convert XML function there that's commented out for various reasons. I created this quite a long time ago. I guess about 8-9 months ago. Oh, it says 5 months. There was an update. So, I mean, I recommend this if you want to get into like a little bit of NMAP and Go programming or interfacing, basically using a programming interface to use NMAP and leverage the power of NMAP. That is all for today's hacking tips. I hope that you've learned something. I hope that you have a good takeaway. Have a good week. You might hear from me again before the end of the week, because a lot of people want me to get past this enumeration and do a box walkthrough or something like that. Something that's a little more on hands hacking, real-time hacking, celebrity hacking, whatever you want to call it. Thanks for all the support. Now I think we're approaching 15,000 views. And like I said earlier, we're approaching 500 subscribers. Like me, hate me, whatever, comment and support the cause. I appreciate it. And it costs you absolutely nothing. Take care.